My name is Marilyn Bannett, 31 years old, and last Friday night was supposed to be the highlight of my career. After years of staying late covering for others and pushing through glass ceilings no one admitted existed, I'd finally made it. Senior account director with a raise and my own office overlooking the city. It should have felt like triumph, and for a while it did. My company had rented out a private room at a downtown restaurant, elegant lighting, jazz playing softly. Champagne glasses lined like soldiers. My colleagues milled around, shaking hands, telling old stories about impossible clients and midnight deadlines. My parents sent flowers. My boss made a speech about Marilyn's relentless drive and quiet leadership. I smiled politely through it all, even when my boyfriend Benjamin barely clapped. He was standing by the bar, swirling his drink, pretending to listen to one of my coworkers talk about design trends. We'd been together 18 months, and 6 of those he'd spent living in my apartment. My lease, my bills, my home. Benjamin was charming when he wanted to be, the kind of man who made people laugh easily but rarely followed through on anything serious. He said he liked how driven I was until that drive made him feel small. Still, I'd hoped he'd be proud of me tonight. At around 9, I was talking with our intern about a new campaign when I noticed Benjamin laughing with Jade, one of our junior designers. 25, bright-eyed, always a little too friendly. They stood close, leaning in to hear each other over the music, her hand brushing his arm as she whispered something. Whatever. I told myself not to care. He was allowed to talk to my coworkers. By 9:45, the crowd had thinned. I checked my phone to see if Benjamin wanted to head home soon, and that's when his text came in. Benjamin, your party's dull. Everyone's just talking about work. Benjamin, Jade, and I are heading to this new rooftop bar downtown. Don't wait up. My hand froze midair. For a moment, all I could hear was the blood pounding behind my ears. I looked up, and there they were near the exit. Jade slipping on her coat, Benjamin holding the door for her. He glanced back, met my eyes, and smiled, like nothing was wrong, like I was just another coworker watching him leave. My chest tightened, but I refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me break. I lifted my glass, took a slow sip of champagne, and typed back, "Me drive safe." No exclamation point, no emoji, just 2 words. Then I slipped my phone into my clutch and turned to thank a client for coming. My voice steady, my smile practiced. Inside, something had gone very, very still. Rick. One of my oldest friends from college leaned over. "Hey, Marilyn, was that Benjamin leaving?" "With Jade?" "Yep." "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I said, though my throat felt tight. I stayed another hour chatting, laughing, posing for photos under dim restaurant lights. When people congratulated me, I smiled as if my world hadn't just shifted, but inside I was hollow, cold, clear. By midnight, the party had ended. I thanked everyone for coming, hugged my boss, and stepped into the crisp night air. The city hummed with life cars gliding past, laughter echoing from bars, and I stood on the sidewalk staring at my reflection in a darkened shop window. "Your boyfriend left your promotion party with your coworker, and you said drive safe." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just started walking. When I reached my apartment, the silence was deafening. Benjamin's shoes by the door, his jacket tossed over the arm of the couch, a half-drunk bottle of whiskey on the counter, the faint smell of his cologne. I turned on the lights. Everything looked exactly the same, yet suddenly it all felt foreign, like I was standing in a stranger's home, one I'd been politely asked to leave. I sat down on the edge of the couch and stared at his keys on the coffee table. The same keys he'd used to walk in here later pretending nothing had happened. Maybe he'd act surprised that I was upset. Maybe he'd tell me I was overreacting. But for the first time in a long while, I realized something simple: I didn't have to react at all. I picked up the phone. "Hi," I said when the voice answered. "Are you still working tonight? I need a locksmith. Urgent." The man arrived an hour later, quiet and professional. He changed both the deadbolt and the handle lock, asked if I wanted extra copies made. "No," I said softly. "Just one." When he left, I walked through every room, the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, collecting everything that wasn't mine. His clothes, his books, his chargers, his watch, even the mug he'd claimed as his. By 2 a.m., the living room was filled with boxes. My apartment looked cleaner than it had in months, stripped of his clutter and carelessness. I sat on the floor, surrounded by his packed-up life, and exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. The anger came in quiet waves, but beneath it was something steadier. Not rage, not heartbreak, clarity. I picked up my laptop and searched the company directory, found Jade Thompson, Junior Designer. her listed address, an apartment complex across town. Then I opened a courier app, scheduled a morning pickup, and typed the delivery note carefully. Benjamin's belongings. He left with the owner of this address last night. Have a great life together. I clicked confirm. At 4:30 a.m., I finally lay down. The first light of dawn crept through the blinds, soft and gray. My phone buzzed once, a message from Benjamin unread, before I turned it face down on the nightstand. As I drifted towards sleep, I whispered to the empty room, "Drive safe, Benjamin." And in my mind, I added what I hadn't said before. You won't be driving back here again. Sunlight was spilling through the blinds when I heard the soft rumble of a truck outside. For a second, I thought I'd dreamt everything, the text, the locksmith, the boxes, but then I turned my head and saw them stacked neatly by the door, each labeled in black marker, Benjamin, Clothes Benjamin, Misk, Benjamin, Electronics. Reality settled in like morning light, calm, pale, irreversible. The movers arrived right on time. 2 men in navy uniforms, polite and curious in that quiet way professionals sometimes are when they sense a story but know better than to ask. Everything by the door, one of them asked. Yes, I said. All his. Where to? I handed over the printed form with Jade Thompson's address on it. He glanced at the note section, blinked, then gave a small approving smile before turning back to his partner. Got it. By 10:30 a.m., every trace of Benjamin was gone. The air in my apartment felt different, lighter. I opened all the windows. The city breeze carried the scent of rain and the faint hum of traffic. My own heartbeat sounded louder now, steady, unhurried. I made coffee, the first cup I'd had alone in months that actually tasted good. Then my phone started ringing. Benjamin. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. Then came the texts. Benjamin. Why isn't my key working, Benjamin? Are you serious right now, Benjamin? I'm at your building. Security won't let me up. Benjamin, open the door. Marilyn, this isn't funny. I put the phone face down on the counter and stirred my coffee slowly. The silence that followed was its own kind of music. An hour later, the front desk called. Ms. Bennett, this is Dennis from security. There's a man here saying he lives with you, but his key isn't working. That would be Benjamin. I said, my tone steady. Yes, ma'am. He's insisting he has belongings upstairs. Had belongings, I corrected. I had them delivered to his new address this morning. A pause. Should I tell him that? Yes. And please let him know he's no longer authorized to enter my unit. If he continues to cause a disturbance, call the police for trespassing. Dennis hesitated, then said softly, Understood, Ms. Bennett. You have a good day. When I hung up, my reflection caught in the microwave door. My face looked different, calm, maybe even relieved. But beneath that serenity, a small pulse of anger still burned. Not the loud kind that screams or throws things, the quiet kind that rearranges your entire life overnight. I sat at the dining table and opened my laptop. My inbox was full of congratulations from coworkers, client requests, new project notifications, all proof of the life I'd built for myself while Benjamin was busy being bored by it. Then another message came through. Benjamin, you can't just lock me out. My stuff's still there. I typed back carefully. Marilyn correction. Your stuff was here. It's at Jade's place now. Check the delivery note if you're confused. 3 dots blinked on the screen for a long time, then disappeared. A few minutes later, another text popped up. Benjamin, you're insane. We just went for drinks. You overreacted. I took a long sip of coffee before replying. Marilyn. You left my promotion party with someone else. You told me not to wait up. I'm just respecting your wish. No answer. It was close to noon when the phone rang again, this time Dennis. Ms. Bennett, just a heads up. That man's still downstairs. He's, called the police. I didn't even blink. Thank you for letting me know. I'll be here. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. 2 officers stood outside, one older man with tired eyes. One younger woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Ms. Bennett, the older one asked. Yes, come in. They stepped inside, taking in the neat rows of labeled boxes, now gone, the spotless counters, the fresh air. We received a call about a domestic dispute, he said. A Mr. Benjamin Lewis claims he's been illegally locked out of his residence. I nodded. I expected that. They exchanged a quick look. Mind telling us what happened? I kept my voice even. Last night, during my promotion celebration, Benjamin left the party with another woman from my workplace. He texted me not to wait up. When I came home, I took that as him ending our relationship. The apartment is leased solely in my name. I paid for everything here. I called a locksmith and had his belongings professionally delivered to the address of the woman he left with. The younger officer raised an eyebrow. You have documentation, lease utility bills. Everything I said, handing her the folder from my desk. She skimmed through it, then nodded to her partner. Technically, the older officer said if his name isn't on the lease and he voluntarily left, you're within your rights. It's a messy breakup, not a criminal issue. So I don't have to let him in. No, ma'am. This is your residence. He has no legal right to enter without your permission. If he continues showing up or causing problems, call us. We'll handle it. Thank you, officers. They left, and for the first time in nearly a day, I allowed myself a smile, small, tired, but real. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Benjamin, the cops said it's illegal what you did. I shook my head, almost laughing. Marilyn. The cop said you have no right to enter. Stop texting me, Benjamin. You made your choice last night. No reply came. Outside, rain had started to fall, soft, rhythmic cleansing. I stood by the window, watching the water slide down the glass. The city lights blurred and shimmered, turning everything into a painting of movement and release. For the first time in months, I wasn't anxious about what he was thinking, where he was, or what mood he'd be in when he got home, because this wasn't his home anymore. As thunder rolled faintly in the distance, I whispered to my reflection, "Welcome back, Marilyn." Then my phone pinged one last time, not from Benjamin this time, but from Jade. Jade, really mature of you. You didn't have to humiliate him like that. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing. Marilyn, I didn't humiliate him. I just sent his life to the address he left with. And before I could change my mind, I blocked her number too. The rain kept falling steady and cleansing, like the universe itself was helping me wash him out of my story. Monday morning arrived with the false promise of normalcy. The air smelled of rain and asphalt, and for a moment, I almost forgot that the last 72 hours had completely rewritten my life. I ironed my blouse, packed my laptop, and walked into the office as if nothing had happened. My coworkers smiled, congratulated me again on the promotion, handed me coffee. But beneath every polite exchange, I felt something shift, a ripple I couldn't yet name. At 10:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Rebecca, HR. I hesitated before answering. Hi, Marilyn. Can you stop by my office for a minute? That tone, calm, careful, told me this wasn't about onboarding paperwork. When I stepped into her office, Rebecca looked uneasy. Please have a seat. I did. She folded her hands. We received a complaint this morning from Benjamin Lewis. I exhaled slowly. Of course you did. He claims, she continued carefully, that you harassed him, changed the locks on what he describes as a shared residence, and publicly humiliated him by sending his belongings to another employee's address, that employee being Jade Thompson. The absurdity of it was almost comical. Did he mention the part where he left my promotion party with her? Rebecca's eyebrows rose slightly. He did not. Would you like to see proof? I unlocked my phone and scrolled through the messages. Here's the text where he said my party was boring and he was leaving with Jade, time-stamped. And here's the security footage from the restaurant, both of them walking out together. Rebecca leaned closer. You have security footage? I requested it from the venue Saturday morning. It's amazing what people will send when you say it's for HR documentation. She watched the short clip, then sighed. Okay, that's pretty clear. He left voluntarily, I added. He's not on my lease. I had his things delivered to the only logical address, the one he left with. Rebecca pinched the bridge of her nose. Marilyn. I can't tell you how to handle your personal life, but legally and professionally, you didn't violate any policies. You didn't threaten him, didn't damage property, didn't use company resources. This is a personal matter he tried to drag into work. So, I'm not in trouble. Not at all. But I'd suggest avoiding both him and Jade from now on. HR can't mediate heartbreak. I nodded. Trust me, I've had enough mediation for a lifetime. As I stood to leave, Rebecca added, For what it's worth, I think you handled it better than most would. Better, I smiled faintly. I thought I was ruthless. She tilted her head. Sometimes those are the same thing. I walked back to my office, every click of my heels echoing like punctuation marks to the sentence that was my new beginning. At my desk, I opened emails, scheduled client calls, pretended to be absorbed in campaign timelines, anything to drown out the whisper of embarrassment crawling up my spine. By lunch, the whispers had evolved into murmurs. People were talking not to me, but around me. Jade wasn't at her desk. Her absence spoke louder than gossip ever could. Around 2 o'clock, my phone vibrated again, a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. You didn't have to do this. I didn't reply. Unknown. You humiliated him, Marilyn. He's devastated. I stared at the text, recognizing the style the passive aggression masked as concern. Jade. Marilyn, I didn't humiliate him. He did that himself when he walked out on me mid-celebration. Her reply came fast. Jade. You could have handled it privately. Sending his stuff to me was cruel. Marilyn Cruel was leaving your partner for cocktails while she's being toasted by her boss. Consider us even. I blocked her number before she could respond. That evening, the front desk called again. Ms. Bennett, just letting you know Mr. Lewis was back earlier today. He wasn't causing trouble, just standing outside for a bit. Did he try to come in? No, ma'am, but he looked upset. Eventually, he left. Thank you for letting me know, Dennis. I hung up and pressed my palms against the counter, exhaling. The rational part of me said he'd realize soon enough that it was over. But another part, the part that had once loved him, knew better. Benjamin wasn't the type to disappear quietly. The next morning, Rebecca called again. He's withdrawn the HR complaint, she said. That was fast. Well, technically, we told him it wasn't a company issue. He didn't take it well. I leaned back in my chair. Good to know. And Marilyn? Yes. Off the record, Jade asked to transfer to another department. There it was. The ripple I'd felt yesterday had turned into a current. The aftermath was spreading. That night, I came home to a message blinking on my phone, a voicemail shaky and slurred. Benjamin. Marilyn. You didn't have to ruin everything. I needed some space, that's all. You overreacted. You always do this. You take things too far. I listened in silence, my face expressionless. The voice that once made my heart skip now sounded small, pathetic. I deleted it. Then, almost out of habit, I checked my email one more time before bed. A new message sat in my inbox. Subject line, you'll regret this. No sender name. Just an address that looked newly made. I opened it anyway. You made me lose everything, my place, my friends, my job. You think you've won, but people will see who you really are soon. I'll make sure of it. My finger hovered over report spam, then I paused. Part of me wanted to forward it to HR to prove the harassment had reversed itself. But another quieter part just smiled. Because that email confirmed what I already knew, Benjamin wasn't angry because I'd humiliated him. He was angry because I'd refused to be humiliated. And that more than any lock lawyer or delivery truck was what truly broke him. I closed my laptop and turned off the lights. The city glowed beyond my window, indifferent, eternal. The reflection staring back at me wasn't the same woman from 3 nights ago, that Marilyn had tolerated disrespect disguised as charm. This one she'd discovered. Silence was sharper than any scream. The call came just after lunch on Wednesday. My phone buzzed across my desk, flashing a name I hadn't seen in months, Mrs. Lewis, Benjamin's mother. For a second, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity, that dangerous, fragile thing, won. Hello? Marilyn Bennett. Her voice was clipped, shaking with moral outrage. How dare you throw my son out like garbage after everything he's done for you? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the muted skyline outside my office window. Good afternoon, Mrs. Lewis. Don't you good afternoon me, young lady. Benjamin has been crying for days. He's devastated. You've ruined his reputation, his job, his entire life, sending his things to that woman's apartment. What were you thinking? My voice stayed calm. You mean Jade Thompson? The woman he left my promotion party with, the one he told me not to wait up for. Silence on the other end. Then a sharp inhale. That's not what he told me. I'm sure it isn't. Marilyn, people make mistakes. You don't destroy someone's life over one bad night. I swiveled slightly in my chair. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. I just made one too. You'll regret this, she snapped. You always came off so perfect, but no one is, and you're not as cold as you pretend. You'll miss him eventually. I smiled faintly. If that happens, Mrs. Lewis, I'll send myself a sympathy card. She gasped a sharp intake of disbelief, then hung up. The line went dead, but the quiet that followed felt like a curtain falling. That evening, Dennis from the front desk called again. Ms. Bennett, just so you know, your ex's friend was here earlier, asking to pick up some of his forgotten items. She said it was urgent medication, she claimed. Name, Lauren something. Said she was Jade's friend too. Of course she was. Benjamin's loyal entourage was nothing if not persistent. I told Dennis I'd handle it. 15 minutes later, I found myself facing a woman in designer sunglasses and false empathy. Lauren, she introduced herself, all fake sweetness. I'm just here for Benjamin's prescriptions. He's not doing well, and he needs them. I folded my arms. What prescriptions? His anxiety medication. Birth control. She hesitated, realizing too late. I blinked. Birth control. She stammered. I mean her birth control. Jade's. They're living together now. It's been stressful. So that was it. My stomach turned with a mix of disgust and relief. The pieces were fitting together and the picture wasn't flattering. Wait here, I said. Upstairs, I checked the bathroom cabinet. Sure enough, 2 bottles, one for anxiety, one labeled under my insurance. Her name, Marilyn Bennett, under primary insured. And beneath it, dependent, Benjamin Lewis. Dependent. The word looked grotesque now. I stood there frozen until the absurdity of it made me laugh. The man who'd mocked my work obsession had been living on my benefits the whole time. I called HR. Rebecca Quick. Question: when I remove a domestic partner from my insurance, how fast does it take effect? Immediately, she said. But they'll get a continuation offer through Cobra. Why? Because my dependent is no longer dependent. 5 minutes later, I clicked Remove Partner on the company portal. And just like that, his safety net vanished. I walked back downstairs, bottles in hand. Lauren waited by the lobby window, tapping her phone impatiently. Here, I said, handing them over. Tell Benjamin he's off my insurance. He'll get an email about coverage options. Oh, and tell him to stop sending people here. Her polite mask cracked. You're unbelievable. He loved you. Then he should have acted like it. You don't even sound human, she spat. I met her glare. Maybe that's why I don't get played anymore. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She turned on her heel and stormed out the door, swinging shut behind her with a satisfying click. That night I sat on my couch, surrounded by quiet. No noise from the hallway, no angry phone calls, no more arguments echoing through the walls. I stared at my reflection in the dark TV screen. My face looked peaceful. The stillness reminded me of something my grandmother once said. Peace doesn't always come after forgiveness. Sometimes it comes after the fires burned everything down. The next morning, a thick white envelope waited in my mailbox. Legal letterhead. I didn't even need to open it to know. Inside, a demand for $15,000, emotional distress, moving expenses, and replacement of personal property. Benjamin had officially declared war. I laughed out loud, the sound startling even me. The irony was too rich, the man who'd walked out of my life on a whim, now claiming I'd ruined it. I called my lawyer, the same one who'd reviewed my apartment lease years ago. Explained the situation. Sent screenshots, texts, delivery receipts, and that restaurant footage. He called back within hours, amused. Ms. Bennett, he doesn't have a case. If anything, you could countersue for harassment. You have documentation of abandonment, a clear lease, and proof of delivery. Frankly, his claim is a tantrum with legal stationery. Perfect, I said. Draft the response, short and sharp. By evening, my lawyer had sent a single-page reply to Benjamin's attorney. Ms. Bennett denies all allegations. Your client's claim lacks merit and is contradicted by evidence. Should further harassment occur, we will pursue damages. I stared at the screen, after reading it, the faintest smile pulling at my lips. Because somewhere across town, Benjamin was realizing that manipulation didn't work when the person you were targeting no longer cared. The following day, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. Unknown. Hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything. I didn't respond. Unknown. Jade's girlfriend left her. She blames you. Ah, there it was. The domino effect. Unknown. I hope it was worth it. It was. I typed one last message, slow and deliberate. Marilyn, actions have consequences. You left my party with her Benjamin. You both chose this. I just made sure the ending matched the opening scene. Then I blocked the number for good. That night, I poured a glass of wine, opened the window, and let the city air fill the room. My plants rustled softly in the breeze. There was no triumph, no victory high, just quiet, undeniable peace. For the first time in years, the apartment finally felt like mine. The envelope came on a Friday morning. Same pale ivory paper, same embossed letterhead, Lewis and Hawthorne Legal Associates. I didn't even need to open it to know what was inside, but I did, slowly, deliberately. Formal notice, client. Benjamin Lewis seeks damages for unlawful eviction, emotional distress, and property mishandling. Settlement requested, $15,000. I almost laughed. $15,000, the price tag Benjamin had placed on his own humiliation, the cost of being held accountable. I set the letter down beside my coffee cup and stared at it for a while. The morning sun painted a golden square on my kitchen counter, the smell of toast lingering in the air. Ordinary peace. Fragile, but mine. And I wasn't about to let anyone, least of all him, take that from me. My lawyer, David, answered on the second ring. Morning, Marilyn. Did the hyenas send you another letter? Yes, I said. This one's louder than the last. He chuckled. Same nonsense. Different stationery. I already sent a response yesterday, short, factual, and probably more polite than he deserved. They won't pursue it. There's no case. You've got everything documented, texts, footage, receipts, witness statements. If they tried court, they'd get laughed out. So, it's over. Legally, yes. Emotionally, I can't say. People like him, they need a stage. When you take it away, they start performing in smaller rooms. His words lingered after I hung up. Smaller rooms. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon, whispers started rippling through the office. Jade had requested a department transfer graphic design, not UX. She'd cited personal conflicts. And Benjamin gone completely silent. No texts, no calls, not even a pathetic apology. But silence can be loud when it's built on guilt. 2 days later, my mother called out of nowhere. "Sweetheart, some woman named Susan just called me, said she's Benjamin's sister. She asked if I could convince you to be reasonable. What on earth is going on?" I sighed. "Don't worry about it, Mom. It's handled." "Handled?" she echoed. "She said her brother's staying with their parents, that you ruined his life." I told her if she raised a man who thought leaving his girlfriend for another woman during her promotion party was acceptable, maybe he did the ruining himself. I smiled despite the ache in my chest. "You didn't." "Oh, I did." She hung up before I could finish. My mom had never been one for subtlety. That night I went for a walk, my first real walk since everything happened. The city glowed with its usual Pulse Neon Lights cafe, chatter the faint smell of roasted chestnuts from a nearby cart. Every window I passed reflected a piece of me I didn't recognize. Lighter, sharper, free. I stopped by a storefront that sold houseplants and bought one a single-potted ivy. Small, stubborn, and quietly alive. When I placed it on my windowsill, it looked like hope that had roots. By Monday, my lawyer confirmed Benjamin's attorney had gone silent. No follow-up letters, no calls, no case. It was finished, at least on paper. But endings aren't always applause and closure. Sometimes they're just quiet rooms and memories that still sting when you least expect it. I thought I'd feel victorious, vindicated, maybe even proud. Instead, what settled inside me was a strange, hollow calm. Because the truth was, Benjamin's downfall didn't thrill me anymore. I wasn't angry. I was done. The satisfaction came not from revenge, but from realizing how little of me he'd ever really known. He used to call me emotionless, said I processed feelings like a spreadsheet. He never understood that quiet wasn't emptiness, it was control. It was the armor I'd built after years of being told women like me should smile more and let men lead. He thought my calm meant weakness. But calm is just what strength looks like when it's finished explaining itself. That evening, as I sat by the window scrolling through emails, a new message popped up. Unknown. "You ruined my life." I knew that tone, that familiar self-pity that always came dressed as accusation. Unknown. "I'm living with my parents now. Jade's girlfriend left her. Everyone's talking about us. You didn't have to be so cruel." I should have ignored it. I almost did. But something inside me wanted the final word not out of anger, but closure. I typed slowly. "Marilyn. You texted me that my promotion party was boring. You left with another woman and told me not to wait up. That wasn't cruelty, Benjamin. That was a choice. I just made mine too." He read it within seconds. Then the typing bubble blinked on and off once, twice, before disappearing for good. That was the last time I ever heard from him. Weeks passed. I started sleeping through the night again. The nightmares, him coming back, the locks breaking, the argument replaying, began to fade. I redecorated the apartment, threw out his leftover junk, replaced his heavy gray curtains with linen ones that let the sunlight in. Got rid of those scented candles he'd mocked me for collecting. Bought art that actually meant something to me. The silence of my home no longer felt like loss. It felt like peace earned, not given. And somewhere between replacing passwords, canceling shared accounts, and unsubscribing from chaos, I realized I hadn't lost anything that mattered. Sure, I'd spent 18 months loving a man who'd confused comfort for commitment. But I also gained something far more valuable: boundaries. The kind that stay locked even when someone else is knocking. Later that week, as I watered the ivy on my windowsill, I caught my reflection in the glass, softer around the edges now, but stronger too. The city below was humming alive. My world was smaller now, but quieter. And in that stillness, a thought flickered. Not regret, not vengeance, just clarity. Some people think closure means forgiveness, but sometimes it just means locking the door and meaning it. It had been 6 quiet weeks since Benjamin's last message. 6 weeks without slammed doors, apologies, soaked in manipulation, or that hollow guilt I used to carry like a necklace. My apartment had finally become what it should have been all along. Peaceful, bright, and mine. Every morning, I woke to sunlight spilling through linen curtains, dust floating like soft glitter. I'd make coffee in silence, no second mug waiting beside mine. And for once, that didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. The ivy on my windowsill had grown 2 new vines. They curled upward toward the light, stubborn and graceful. A small reminder that even things left in pieces could climb again. Work had settled too. The gossip eventually lost oxygen. Jade's transfer went through quietly, and no one asked questions anymore. If people whispered about me, they did it out of sight. I didn't care. My results spoke louder than their curiosity. Rebecca from HR dropped by my office one afternoon. Just wanted to say she began the new campaign you led. The CEO's thrilled. It's one of our strongest quarters yet. Thank you, I said, smiling. She hesitated at the door. And Marilyn, I know it's none of my business, but what you did back then, setting boundaries, that's not cold, it's rare. Her words stayed with me long after she left. Rare. Maybe that's what peace was, not the absence of chaos, but the refusal to keep inviting it back in. On a soft Saturday evening in April, my friend Zoe, yes, that's Zoe, Jade's now ex-girlfriend, texted out of nowhere. Zoe, I know you don't owe me anything, but I just wanted to say thank you. Zoe. Finding out the truth hurt, but it also freed me. For a moment, I stared at her messages, the irony washing over me. The same truth that once set my life on fire had ended up freeing more than just me. I typed back simply, Marilyn, I'm glad you found your peace. We all deserve better. She heart-reacted the message, and that was that. No drama. Just quiet closure. That same evening, I attended a small barbecue my colleague Rick hosted. I almost didn't go. The idea of mingling again felt foreign, but something in me whispered that maybe it was time. That's where I met Eli. He wasn't flashy, no overconfident smile, no rehearsed charm, just warm eyes, calloused hands, and a way of listening that made silence feel safe. He worked as a veterinary assistant, talked about animals with the kind of gentleness that told me he'd never weaponize someone's heart. We talked for hours about everything except work. About favorite cities, old songs, how he once adopted a cat that refused to sleep anywhere but on his chest. When I told him about my promotion, he didn't change the subject or make it about himself. He asked questions, real ones. So what does leading your own team feel like? Exhilarating, I said, and terrifying. Sounds like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That line, so simple, so sincere, stayed in my head long after the party ended. Over the next few weeks, Eli and I saw more of each other. Slowly. No grand Marilyn tie-ins, no games, just quiet consistency. He didn't fill silence with noise, he let it breathe. When I finally told him about Benjamin, not every detail, just enough, he didn't pity me. He just nodded and said, sounds like you finally locked the wrong person out to make space for yourself. He was right. One Sunday morning, months later, I stood by the same window where everything had once fallen apart. The city outside was bright alive. My reflection looked back at me, calm, sure, unshaken. I thought about the woman I'd been on that first night, clutching her phone, whispering drive safe to a man who'd just shattered her trust. And I thought about the woman standing here now, steady, unflinching, with nothing left to prove. Maybe that's what healing really is, not forgiveness, not revenge, just reclaiming the space you once gave away to someone unworthy. I reached out and touched the glass, watching my reflection overlap with the city lights. I lost 18 months, I whispered, but I found a lifetime's worth of clarity. The doorbell rang Eli early as usual, holding coffee for 2. I opened the door, smiling. You didn't have to bring that, he shrugged. Didn't have to, wanted to.